January 3rd, 2026, 2 o'clock in the morning. In a heavily curtained room in Florida, the only light came from a wall of digital screens. In front of them sat the most powerful man on Earth, U.S. President Donald Trump. He wasn't watching a movie. He was watching a live feed of his army attacking a house thousands of miles away in Caracas, Venezuela. The target was President Nicolas Maduro. While the Venezuelan leader slept, completely unaware, American helicopters were flying merely 100 feet above the ocean to evade radar detection. Earlier that night, a massive cyber attack had neutralized the power grid of Caracas. The entire capital city was engulfed in total darkness. Under the cover of this blackout, elite Delta Force commandos rappelled down from the helicopters, landing silently on the rooftop of Maduro's residence. They breached the bedroom window within seconds. The noise finally woke Maduro. Realizing what was happening, he made a desperate run for his steel-reinforced safe room. But he was too slow. The American soldiers intercepted him just inches from the heavy door. Within 5 minutes, the operation was over. A sitting president of a sovereign nation had been captured, bound, and extracted. President Trump later told Fox News, quote, "It was just like watching a TV show." But this was no show. It was the most shocking military operation in modern history. The next morning, the world woke up to a new reality. Images of Maduro in chains, standing on American soil, sent shockwaves across the globe. But how did this happen? And more importantly, why? This operation, codenamed Absolute Resolve, did not happen overnight. The planning began months ago. Back in August 2025, while the world thought everything was normal, the CIA had secretly deployed a surveillance team to Caracas. They tracked everything: where Maduro slept, what he ate, and even the schedule of his pets. Simultaneously, in the U.S. state of Kentucky, the military built an exact physical replica of Maduro's compound. Delta Force commandos spent weeks rehearsing every single step, preparing for every possible scenario. Then came the trigger. In November 2025, Trump delivered a private ultimatum to Maduro during a phone call, offering him a chance to step down. Maduro refused. Secretary of State Marco Rubio later described Maduro's choice as acting like a wild man who rejected generous offers. Finally, on January 2nd at 10:46 p.m., Trump gave the final go order. Over 150 American aircraft took off from 20 different bases. This wasn't just a kidnapping, it was a full-scale invasion of airspace. Maduro was flown to the USS Iwo Jima, then to Guantanamo Bay, and finally to New York. But the official justification given by the White House has raised serious questions. Trump claimed this was about narco-terrorism and restoring democracy. But if we look closely at the data, the real reason becomes aggressively clear. It is not about drugs, it is about oil. To understand this, we have to look at the geology of oil. Venezuela holds the largest proven crude oil reserves in the world, over 300 billion barrels. That is more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, and far more than the United States. But here is the catch. Venezuelan oil is unique. It is heavy and sour, meaning it is thick and full of sulfur. This specific type of oil is essential for producing diesel, asphalt, and fuel for heavy industries. On the other hand, the oil produced in the U.S. is light and sweet, which is mostly used for gasoline. The problem lies in the infrastructure. During the 1970s, billions of dollars were spent building American refineries specifically calibrated to process Venezuelan heavy crude. These refineries cannot simply switch to American light oil. Without Venezuelan oil, the U.S. industrial engine begins to choke.
This dependency explains why Trump called Venezuela's nationalization of its oil industry the greatest theft in history. It wasn't just ideology, it was about the physical machinery of the American economy. Now, let's look at the drug trafficking excuse. The U.S. government charged Maduro with flooding America with cocaine. However, experts and data suggest otherwise. Venezuela is a minor transit country. The vast majority of drugs entering the U.S. come from Colombia and Mexico via the Pacific route. Venezuela doesn't even have a Pacific coast. Furthermore, the deadliest drug crisis in America today is fentanyl, which kills thousands of Americans every year. Fentanyl originates from Mexico and China, not Venezuela. If saving lives was the priority, why target Caracas? The hypocrisy becomes undeniable when we look at recent history. Just days before this attack, Trump pardoned the former president of Honduras, who had been convicted of smuggling 400 tons of cocaine. This sends a clear message. Drug charges are a political weapon, used only against those who defy Washington. Under international law, specifically Article 2 of the UN Charter, the use of military force against a sovereign nation is strictly prohibited. This was an act of war. Even under U.S. domestic law, the president requires congressional approval to declare war. Trump bypassed the American parliament entirely, leading to renewed calls for his impeachment. Countries like Brazil, Spain, and even allies in Europe have condemned it as New Age colonialism. The fear is real. If the United States can simply kidnap a world leader they dislike, what stops Russia or China from doing the same? Imagine if Chinese commandos landed in a European capital to kidnap a prime minister over a trade dispute. This operation effectively declares the death of international law. It establishes a new world order where rules apply only to the weak, while the powerful do as they please. There is one final, darker theory regarding the timing of this attack. Just weeks prior, the infamous Epstein files were released, containing damaging allegations linking Donald Trump to serious crimes. The media cycle was dominated by these scandals. Many political analysts believe Operation Absolute Resolve was the ultimate distraction, a manufactured war to shift the global narrative away from the president's personal legal battles. Whether it was for oil, for distraction, or for power, the outcome remains the same. Nicolas Maduro may have been a controversial leader, but his removal has set a terrifying precedent. Trump has already threatened similar actions against Colombia and Mexico. The message is clear. Sovereignty is now a conditional privilege, granted only to those who bow to the demands of the superpower. As we stand in 2026, we are no longer just watching a conflict in South America. We are witnessing the rewriting of global rules. And if history is any guide, this is just the beginning.